They were just children and suddenly on the run. For decades, they kept their stories to themselves. But the Second World War reshaped the borders of Europe and the lives of countless East Prussian children.
Up until October 20th, 1944, our childhood was like heaven on earth. But on October 21st, we had to flee by horse and cart.
Up until this point, East Prussia was the German Reich's northeasternmost province. When the war ended in 1945, the north fell to the Soviet Union and the south went to Poland. As the Red Army advanced, it exacted revenge on Nazi Germany, creating a mass exodus like never before.
So many dead people, empty suitcases lying open, and I saw quite a few teddy bears. Then I saw the first Russian Red Army soldiers and so many, many women screaming. They were raped right there on the road.
In former East Prussia, tens of thousands in and around Königsberg died from famine and disease. Often only the children were left. About 20,000 of them fled impending starvation to neighboring Lithuania, working for a piece of bread or begging for the bare necessities. Later they became known as Wolfskinder, or wolf children, while roaming through a hostile world all alone. For 91-year-old Johanna Ruga, it's a journey into the past. This trip to Lithuania was organized by the non-profit Federation of Expellees in Lower Saxony. 80 years later, former wolf children from Germany have the chance to finally return home. Johanna Ruga was 10 years old when she fled to Danzig with her mother and sisters. For days on end, they waited in the bitter cold for a ship.
And I was 10 years old, and it was my first time on a ship. And there was a woman screaming with two boys. They were screaming and freezing. It was January and they had nothing on. And suddenly the woman went crazy. She threw the two boys overboard into the ice floes and jumped after them. That was the first time in my life that I lost faith in humanity.
But after a few months, the so-called Reich Germans were sent back. Anyone who came to Poland after 1939 was considered a Nazi and was forced to leave, even children. The journey back was traumatic, especially for the women.
That cry, "Mama, the Russians are coming," really got to us. Then she'd hide. One evening at dusk, we couldn't see, and then there they were. 7 or 8 or 9, I don't remember exactly. Their suspenders were already down. One of them went inside, and Mother wasn't there. They wanted to know where Mother was, and they beat us. All 3 of us got a thrashing. Then I said, "The wood pile, you know, where the firewood was stacked." In my desperation, I said she was in there. Then they took their rifles with bayonets and poked into the wood. And my little sister thought it was true and that they were going to stab our mother. And then she had a screaming fit that went on for hours. She thought, now we'll have no mama anymore.
85-year-old Luise is chairwoman of the Edelweiss Wolf Children Association, which was created by the survivors. Hundreds of former East Prussian wolf children like her were Lithuanianized. They were given Lithuanian names and were told not to speak German. Luise was 4 years old when she fled Königsberg with her aunt. Her mother had enough on her hands with 4 other children.
She wanted to go west, of course, like everyone else, but she was probably killed. I remember once I crawled over a pile of human corpses and I was alone, crawling all alone, just me.
Luise was too young to remember everything.
I was somewhere in a home and there were several children. All of us were hungry. I certainly was, hungry and thirsty. I was always waiting if maybe somebody from my family would come and get me. But that didn't happen. Then I remember Russian soldiers came. This troop was already heading back to Russia. There was a 90% certainty that I would be taken with them to Russia. They took German children to Russia, just like they take Ukrainian children now too.
Luise would have liked to have joined the Remembrance Tour, but her health won't allow it. But she does plan to attend Lithuania's National Day of Remembrance for the Wolfskinder, now in its 2nd year. On the way to Kaunas, Lithuania's 2nd largest city, the German group visits a military cemetery. Russian and German soldiers are brought together here in this graveyard. 90-year-old Ursula Dorn is also one of the so-called wolf children. Her siblings starved to death near Königsberg. From the age of 10, she struggled and begged for years in Lithuania. For a long time, she hoped that at least her father had survived.
I have to keep myself together. It wasn't until 2006 that I found out from the Missing Persons Service where my father was. Until then, he was missing. My father was in Labinsk, Russia. By May the 5th, 1946, he was already dead. And I only found out in 2006.
At the cemetery, Johanna recalls a German forced laborer who, like so many women, was raped and gave birth to what was thought of as a Russian child.
They also had a baby like that. They just threw it away. It was lying outside, covered with filth. A little hand was always poking out. We'd always look at it when we walked past. That's how crude we children had become.
Johanna's mother was also a forced laborer on a Soviet farm, but they were barely given anything to eat. So Johanna, then 11 years old, went to Lithuania with her younger sisters to beg.
We rode freight trains to Tilsit. We had to jump on when the train started moving. They went as far as Tilsit. In Tilsit, we had to walk to Tauroggen. That was already Lithuania. The Memel River bridge had been blown up. They were pontoon bridges. Children fell in there too, already half dead from exhaustion, no longer able to go on. Many drowned.
Today, the Queen Luise Bridge separates the Kaliningrad Oblast from Lithuania. A Z on the Russian side symbolizes loyalty to Putin. The children traveled in groups, around 6 to 8 in each. They slept in barns or under trees searching for food. They will never forget feeling hungry.
But the very best thing was to find a little stream with beautiful pebbles. If you put one in your mouth, it lasted for hours. Once a girl was dying under a big tree, and we went to her. And do you know what she said while she was dying? Oh, if only I could be there soon. Look, can't you see that? The table is set for dinner. They're waving for me to come. And so we sat with her. It was on the way to Lithuania, the 30 kilometers she always had to walk. Take us with you, we said. Do you really want to go there? No, they're just calling me, she said. And then she died.
Johanna is happy to find the Church of the Archangel Gabriel in Kaunas again. The nuns there gave her and the other children food and clothing and washed them. She wants to be alone now for a moment. After 80 years, Ursula Dorn no longer recognizes anything in Kaunas. The memories of the terrible experiences and hunger are harder for her to bear than she thought. She signs the guest book at the Kaunas Theater, but she no longer feels up to giving an interview. Luise's fate was also sealed in Kaunas. The Red Army took her as a kind of mascot.
They had to stop somewhere in Lithuania, in the city of Kaunas, and I was playing outside there. I was noticed by a Lithuanian family. They came back a few more times, and then I was taken. I was given chocolates and walked along this fence, and there was a gap, and I got out. I was hidden with relatives in a village somewhere.
Luise's adoptive parents took the 4-year-old in out of pity, even though it put them in danger. Unlike other East Prussian children, she was allowed to go to school, but she could never be German again.
Once I was in the family, the first thing I was told was that it was strictly forbidden to speak German, only Lithuanian. I still sometimes spoke it secretly with the teddy bear I'd finally gotten. But I was always punished for every word of German, severely punished. There were already a lot of East Prussian children in Lithuania. We were all considered fascists. Whether as a child or an adult, it was very risky to be German.
What was your name in Lithuania?
In Lithuanian, Alfreda Pipiraitė.
During the German occupation, the Wehrmacht wreaked havoc on Lithuania. The German language was considered the language of the occupiers. This was one of the reasons why East Prussian children remained invisible in Lithuania for a long time. Some forgot their language and their German names. Many felt homeless without understanding why.
Most of them had it much, much worse than me. Really much worse. Because they remained illiterate. Because they couldn't go to school, not to a Lithuanian school. In East Prussia, some had completed 3, 4, 5 grades, but they forgot what they had learned. And so they are still illiterate today. They lived scattered throughout Lithuania, mostly in small villages, yes. They worked for farmers in exchange for food. Some who were very, very young didn't even know their own names, their first and last names.
Christopher Spatz is a historian who was one of the first to examine the history of the Wolfskinder from their perspective. He met with over 50 eyewitnesses. For many, it was the first time they had ever spoken about it.
They were all, without exception, strong people and lone fighters. Even afterwards, it was rare that they were active in associations or became politically involved. They had trained themselves to be invisible, to adapt. Their journeys were exceptional, guided by a strength from within, and with the deep existential experience that they can only rely upon themselves.
When Lithuania gained independence in 1990, Lithuanian wolf children began to talk about their past. When Luise told her daughter that she was really German, she was met with disbelief.
My daughter was outraged. She thought, what kind of parents were they, losing their own child? What is war about? She has no idea what war means, what war does to people.
It was only after some 50 years that Luise learned what had happened to her biological mother.
There was a large barn, and all the women were locked in this barn. And then soldiers came and said, "Woman, come." That was a bad sign, of course. My mother was there with other children, and once she was told, "Come on, woman." She didn't want to, couldn't, or was unable to walk anymore. And she had the youngest child, Günther, on her lap. And she was shot. Other children saw it.
After Lithuania gained independence, she managed to locate her siblings through the Red Cross.
From the very start, the other brothers didn't want to see me. I was already in Germany, but they didn't want to see me. I think that was their wives' influence. Well, here comes a Russian woman. She'll want something. Better avoid her. I stayed with my sister. With the sisters, everything was fine. But I didn't meet the brothers. In the family, I was the Russian sister.
The so-called Russian sister would become a successful civil engineer, a wife, mother, and grandmother. Visiting the Wolfskinder Memorial in Taurogen, the Russian border is visible from here.
Look at this girl. She's so thin.
In 1948, Johanna was transported to East Germany. She became a financial clerk, got married, and had children. But in the GDR, she was regarded with suspicion because she refused to join the Society for German-Soviet Friendship. It's the Lithuanian Day of Remembrance for the Wolf children. Many of them are no longer alive. Some of the East Prussian children later moved to Germany, but not all of them settled there or relearned the language. 10 Lithuanian wolf children and 3 from Germany attended the Day of Remembrance. The Edelweiss Association has been to Germany a few times with the Lithuanian wolf children.
Once there was a large group of us in Germany in the Bundestag, and one lady always had a big red bag with her. And we asked, "What do you have in that bag, Waltraud?" She said, "Some sandwiches." "Why?" we asked. "Well, anything can happen," she said. "You know, this hunger is so deeply ingrained in the brain. You have to be ready for anything." When I drove this group to Germany, many asked, "Will there be enough to eat in Germany?"
They are all deeply grateful to the Lithuanians. Without their help, thousands of East Prussian children would have perished. But the years of hardship have left their mark.
I never wanted to marry, by the way. I thought everything here is just temporary for me. I don't belong in this circle. I'm a stranger, and someday something will change. When I met my husband, it took forever before it turned into love. He had so much patience with me. As a child, I'd never seen married couples spending time together or showing affection. I'd never experienced that. It was so hard for me then. I always thought of the women in Danzig screaming, who died. Covered in blood, they died there. I always thought that was something terrible, that it would hurt me too somehow. But in the end, it turned out well.